Good day, people. Welcome once again to AGIT Codeworks. And today we are going to be talking about SQL functions, Oracle SQL functions. All right, so let's get this. Okay, first of all, if you are new to this channel and you want to follow up on subsequent tutorials, it's best you hit the subscribe button and notification bell. It really helps. Also, any comment you have is very welcome on the comment section. All right, let's talk about Oracle SQL functions now. First of all, what are functions? What's a function? Okay, so what's an SQL function? Okay, now first of all, there are certain manipulations you would want to perform on data in Oracle and pretty much most of the other databases. You would need functions to do those kind of manipulations because it would be a bit more complex to do them manually. Now that is where functions come in line. So functions are very powerful SQL features that can be used for the following. Number one, to modify data items, perform calculation on data, manipulate output for groups of data, manipulate output for groups of rows, okay, format dates and numbers for display, and convert column data types. There are a lot of cases where data needs to be manipulated in the listed format. Example, let's say I want to modify a data item that exists in uppercase to lowercase. I would need a function. Or perform a calculation like add a number of months to a particular data. Or retrieve or add a number of days to data, or join two columns together, and I do not want to write all the complex SQL or PLSQL code manually. Functions help us achieve this. Okay, format dates and numbers for display. This is a very useful one because sometimes dates exist in a format that is not very palatable to the viewer of the data. SQL functions can really help in formatting dates and displaying them in more appropriate output depending on the developer. Okay, sorry. So we are still also going to talk about how to convert column data types and so on and so forth. Now I have to mention Oracle has a lot of functions available, a lot of functions, and even some people who are very savvy in PLSQL can develop their own functions. Okay, so basically your target in this particular video will be to understand the general concept of functions, and how it works. Once you grasp that, it's usually really easy to use any function available. Any function you research is super easy to use because they basically all follow the same rules. So I'd like you to look out for those rules, understand them, and then follow me in the practical session where I cite the examples of how to use these functions. So first of all, first thing we have to take note of is that there are two main types of functions. And that's single row functions and group functions. Okay, first of all, single row functions, what you need to understand, this is very important knowledge, especially for those of you who are planning to write a professional exam in Oracle. Theories like this, the exam assumes theories like this are really clear to you. Okay, so basically what are single row functions and what are group functions? These are the two main types of functions in SQL Oracle. Now, single row functions, first rule, they accept multiple rows and return one data per row. I repeat, they accept multiple rows and then return one data for each row. We're going to be looking at the example shortly in our SQL developer. That means that if I have these rows, an SQL function will work on all these rows here and return one result for each row. Okay, return one result for each row. Whereas a group function works on multiple rows but returns just one result, not one result per row. That would mean that a group function will work on these rows. Let's say it works on this number of rows, but it would return one result for the row. For example, if I'm calculating the average of this data, or the maximum, or the minimum, or I'm counting the data to retrieve, so it would return one result for this entire row. That's for a group function. But for a single row function, an example would be, let's say I want to convert each of these records here to uppercase, then lowercase. It will return one data for each row. Now this is very important before we get into the practical where I will demonstrate this. First thing we'll talk about in the practical session would be our single row functions. So single row functions are categorized based on the kind of data they work on. Okay, from this little illustration in front of us, I think it's a no-brainer. You can already see that they are character functions. That means these are single row functions that work on character data. We have number functions. These are single row functions that work on number data. We have date, okay, date functions. We have conversion functions. These are functions that convert data from one type to the other or from one case to the other, and so on and so forth. Then we have general functions that mostly help us manipulate null values. Now, because of the vastness of the number of functions in Oracle, we might not cite examples for each particular function, but the ones we will look at will give you a clear-cut perspective on how functions work and how to use the ones you intend to use. This video is likely also going to be divided in two parts. If we do not cover the entire single row functions and group functions on this video, then we have to do a part 2 of the video to cover the group functions. All right, now for the group functions, we have things like sum, minimum, max, average, and count. Your guess will be as good as mine. You would have guessed already that group functions are used mostly to return statistical data, aggregated data. That's what aggregate means. Aggregate simply means when you compute data that has to do with a lot of rows and it gives you one result. Example, if you want to get the total salary of every employee or a total salary of every employee in a particular department, now that is running through multiple rows but returning just one row for the entire record. Okay, average salary of a particular department or average salary of all the staff. Then I want to count the number of staff that earn more than a particular amount. I didn't say retrieve number of staff that earn a particular amount. I mean a count. So count function would do that. So these functions basically do what their name says. This gets sum, total, minimum, maximum, average, and then a count. Okay. Now for character functions, we have number one. There are two types. First of all, we have case conversion functions and then character manipulation functions. The case conversion functions are lower, upper, and init cap. The lower function would convert string data or character data to lowercase. Okay, it has there are diverse ways this can be used. We'll look at that in the practical session. The upper function, you guessed it, converts to uppercase. The init cap function converts to initial capital letters. Init cap. That means that the first character in the word will start with a capital letter while the rest go with a lowercase. Okay, the first character will start with an uppercase while the rest go with a lowercase. We'll shortly look at how to use this in our SQL developer. Now we have the concat function. This joins multiple rows of characters. Okay, it joins multiple rows that are of the type character. Okay, so I can join first name and last name or first name and email and so on and so forth. Substring will return a particular subset of data within a particular string or within a particular row. Okay, a return subset of data. Example, I want to retrieve first three characters in a particular word. Substring will do that for me. Okay, then we have the length function. The length function would return the number of characters in a particular string. Okay, in string will return numeric position of a particular character in a string. Okay, then lpad and arrowpad would pad the characters to a particular number. Let's say I have a string that is 3 characters. Okay, and I want to pad it to 5 characters with a 0 or something. I would use lpad to add a 0 here, a 0 here, padding it to 5 characters. Okay, this is useful when you want to align your columns. We'll look at all that in the practical session. Then we'll look at the trim. So basically what the trim does is to trim out a particular character in a string. We'll look at that also. Then replace. Okay, replaces a particular character with another character in a string. All right, let's hop over to our SQL developer now and see how these functions work. We're going to start with the single row functions. All right, everyone, I've just popped open my SQL developer and have a connection here, HR. If you do not have this set up on your system, you can just visit the video setting up your Oracle database, and then you will follow up on how to set up SQL developer and the connections, generally how to install your Oracle SQL server. Okay, all right, now we are working on the employees table. That's the exact table you are looking at here. Okay, so where does function come in now? We'll start with the single row functions. Example, the length function. Let's say I want to view the length of everybody's first name. The length of everybody's first name. So let's go. It will be select. Let me display the regular first name. Okay, then here I can return the length of every first name, first underscore name. Okay, you can also go ahead to get any other record you want, but it must end with a from clause which gives it the table from which the data is being retrieved. Okay, so I'm retrieving first name and then the length of every first name. Now remember what I explained in the slide. This is a single row function, and that means that it will work on each and every row here and return one data for each of these rows. Now let's watch that. That's what makes the single row function. So we run this, and then here we are. So we get the first names and then the length of the first name. Okay, this is useful when you want to say, okay, let's say you want to retrieve data for everyone who the number of characters in their first name is less than 4, for example. Okay, I can say where length If you don't know how the where clause works, I have a tutorial on restricting uncertain data on this channel where we looked at the where clause from a more detailed perspective. So where length of first name is greater than 4, for example. So that means I'm only getting everyone who the length of their first name is greater than 4. That's the good thing with SQL. SQL is basically functionally complete. That means that whatsoever type of data you want to retrieve or how you want to manipulate data, SQL has functions or coding logic that can achieve that. Let's see what we get now. So I run this. So everybody retrieve here that first name is greater than 4. This is one use of a function. I could want, okay, all those who the length of their first name is less than 4. The data should be a bit fewer. Okay, these are all those who their first name is less than 4. Okay, so now according to our slide, we are looking at this length function right here. Is what we've talked about now. So let's look at the other functions one by one. Let's look at the concat function. Okay. So our concat function looks like this. If I wanted to join last name with first name, the concat function comes in. And by the way, please take note, every function works like this. The syntax for functions is the name of the function followed by an open and close parenthesis here, which decides the parameter it takes. Okay, the parameter they take, that's the basic structure of every function. So for concat, I'll say concat, then the parameter list goes like this. I want to join, let's say, first underscore name with last underscore name. This is not really doing anything reasonable now, but just to demonstrate how the concat function works. So you observe here, you see we have a concatenated copy, a joined copy of our first name and our last names. That's the concat function. Of course, if you do not like these column headings here, you could basically alias. You can give a column alias. So this is a concat example. Let's just call that concat. And this is the example for length. It's more useful when you give it a more descriptive name. Okay, so alright, so we have length here and we have concat here. Okay, now we go to substring. Okay, substring now would help you retrieve, remember what I said, subset of data within a string, subset of characters within a string. So if I go substring string, and I say, let's say in first name retrieve from the first to the 5th character. So that's what this will do. It takes, first of all, the string, the substring function will work on, then the starting point 1, the end point 5. I would now have to remove this where clause so I can retrieve everybody, not just those who their first name, the length of their first name is greater or less than 4. So let's see what we get. Alright, so you observe, so substring from 1 to 5. So this is Steven, we get Steve, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nina, we get Nina, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so because this lex is the number of characters is not up to 5, so it just gets the first 3, and so on and so forth. This could also be used if I wanted to say, okay, give me all the member of staff who the first 2 characters, okay, the first 2 characters in their first name is something like NE, for example. So I can say where, I'll just copy this. So that means I'm searching based on this. Oops, sorry. A little error here. Okay, from employees, where, copy this, paste here, where the first 2 characters is equals to NE. So this is a search condition now. So you can also use these functions to format search conditions. Okay, so what I have here is the first name has to, the first 2 characters is N and E. Okay, there are a lot of other ways to do this, but this is a convenient way using the substring function. So let's run this. So that's Nina. Only Nina meets that criteria. Okay. So that's the way most of the functions go in string and the rest of them. Now there's another really important function that is very useful for handling dates. It's called the sysdate function. First of all, if you want to retrieve today's date in Oracle, you would say select sysdate from dual. Select sysdate from dual. So this will be what today's date. That's 28 September 2022. Alright, now how is this useful to us now? You could also use this now. This is one of the good use of functions. I told you earlier that some manipulations you would want to do with data that your regular SQL logic cannot handle it. Usually there are functions available to handle this. Before we talk about how going further with the sysdate function, the lower, upper, and the init cap function, I'm sure you would have guessed how they work. We can go select upper. That means I'm converting to uppercase. Which data am I converting to uppercase? I can say everybody's last name. Alright, from employees. Okay, this will display everybody's last name, but in uppercase. Let's say I want lowercase here for everybody's first underscore name, and then I can want init cap. This init cap is not so useful here. Why? Because the original data is already in initial capital letters. Make sense? Alright, so let's do this for job ID. Okay, job ID is not in init cap already, so let's convert job ID to initial capital letters. So let's run this. So you notice we have last names appeared in uppercase, first names appeared in lowercase, and init cap initial capital letters. Okay, another way this can be useful to us is when we are nesting. Let's say I want to display someone's full name, their first name and last name in initial capital letters. Okay, just an example. Okay, I can say something like this. I can use the concatenation operator, for example, to join first underscore name join to with a space last underscore name. Then I can put them in a bracket and convert the entire thing to init cap in case it doesn't already exist in initial capital letters. Exactly. So that's it, initial capital letters. Now this is a very important concept in functions. I can actually also nest. Let's say I want to see the length of these characters. The length of these characters. Now I will perform what we call a nest. Now what's a nest? A nest is when you embed a function inside a parameter list of another function. How do we get that done? Let's say I already have this, but I want to get the length. Okay, paste this here so I can nest the initCap function inside a length function, because all the length function wants to know is that you gave it some characters in here. So the final character returned by initCap, it will calculate the length and give us the output. Let me put my optional keyword for aliasing, and let me just call this full name, okay, and call this length. Okay, by the way, if you don't understand what's going on here, initCap is working on a concatenated copy of first name and last name and turning them into initial capital letters. Then here length is getting that same data. I'm nesting it inside the parameter list of the length function and it's returning the length. So let's see what we get. Oh, okay, I have an error message here. Let's find out what that error is. Okay, I'm running just the, what they call it, just the selected part of the code. So please let me run the entire code now. Alright, so there was no error message, please. Just a slight misconception. I highlighted part of the code. So when I clicked run, it was running just the highlighted part. By the way, that's a way to run a particular highlighted copy of SQL in your SQL worksheet. Okay. This will give us the required output. Okay, so this is the length of all the characters joined, where first name joined to last name, the length of the character, while this is their full name. Okay, now for group functions, the way group function works, remember what I said, it works on multiple rows just like single row functions, but returns just one result. So for example, your boss wants to know the total salary paid every month. So that you want to get a summation of an aggregate sum of everybody's salary. So that would be select sum salary from employees. Pretty easy. You run this. So this is the total earning of every employee. Okay. Also, we can decide to get the average salary of every employee, and that's it. That's the average. If you notice, the average gave us fractions. There is another function called round, which I could pass this into to give us a more rounded copy. The round function is spelled round, like really, just like round. So I can come here and say round. When I run this, it gives us a rounded copy. Okay, that's $6,462 or whatever currency the data is in. If I wanted to give it, to return it in 2 decimal places, the round function works on this, but it can also take a second argument by making a comma and a 2 here. So you get it in 2 decimal places, 6461.83. Okay, that's for the round function. Now I could also change this to any of the aggregate functions like count. So right here now I'm counting the entire employees table and I have 107 member staff. Okay, you can also say asterisk here That means count every single row in the table. All right. Notice that one ran 7. All right. Don't forget, the reason it might not be proper to use a column name here is that it will skip null values. Null values are skipped. All right. So take note of that. Group functions keep null values. But when I say asterisk here, I'm counting every row in the table. All right. So there's a difference. All right, in the next video, we are going to look at aggregate functions in more details and also look at how to use what we call the group by clause. The group by clause is basically used for grouping data. A simple example of how that works is this. Let's say I want to know the total salary in each department. That means total salary in the IT department, total salary in the SA rep, total salary based on their job description. Okay, this is called grouping data. So, for example, how we do that is this. So, I first of all select their job underscore ID. Okay, that's cool. That's working. I can now say sum of their salary. Right? Now, because you cannot combine an aggregate function and something that will return multiple rows, I now say group by job underscore ID. In fact, actually, there's a rule in Oracle. Let's run this first. So here, what's going on here? The IT programmers, the total salary earned by IT programmers is 28,800. Total salary earned by account managers is 12,008, and so on and so forth. You might want to order it. So I can say order by. If you want order by the second column, I can say order by 2. So when I order it, I notice the lowest earning is administrative assistant. That means the total of everybody that has that job description. But the sales representatives, I think they should be more in number, earn the most as a total. Okay. Now if I wanted to reverse this order and make it display in descending order, as you can see, default is ascending, I will say DESC. So it displayed in descending order. So this is highest first. Normally I could also say ASC to display it in ascending order, just that ASC is the default already. So it will really make no difference. So descending order. Okay, from highest earning job description as a total down to the lowest earning job description as a total. Let's say you also want to count. You can also choose to count. Let's see this. The department or the job description with the most number of staff. Let's do this. So if I run this, so you notice SA rep has 30 member of staff, clerks 20, SH clerk 20, financial accountant 5. So this explains why our total budget, more of it goes to sales representatives. All right. Okay, that's basically it on functions. Basically how most functions work. Next time we'll be meeting, we are going to be diving in even deeper into some other date functions and so on and so forth. Don't forget to stay abreast as new videos come up. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and notification bell. Also give a thumbs up if you found the video useful, and any question or comment is welcome in the comment section. Do have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.